taking the time to attend my session. My session is very much not a technical session. It's much more behavioral, but I guess I'll get started. So when I first got asked the "what do you want to be when you grow up" question, I remember proudly telling my parents that I wanted to be a pianist and live inside the opera house. Then came primary school. Teachers asked every kid, where do you see yourself in 10 years? And I remember very firmly saying that I wanted to be a visual artist who owned my own museum. Then came high school. We had these things called personal interviews with our school counsellor with some similar question of, what do you want to do after high school? And during year 10 and year 11, I would have very, very seriously told you acting. I wanted to be an actress in China. Then came uni. No more, what do you want to be questions anymore, but rather, who are you and how are you going to do it? Hi everyone, my name is Claire and I am a hungry 19-year-old tech and strategy enthusiast. So after that hectic recount, you're probably thinking, so what does she want to be? Cliche as this will sound, I managed to translate those dreams into getaways and call my commerce and computer science degree home. So in honor of my musical self, I obtained my diploma certificate and now teach piano to younger generations. And in honor of my love for film and visual arts, I undertook my very first internship at a visual design studio called Super Vixen, where I was there to see the CGI of Stranger Things Season 4 come together, and even dedicated my own time to developing props for an upcoming Hollywood movie in production, which I will let you know when that comes out. In honor of my love for languages, in particular Chinese, I worked hard building my proficiency from the ground up in learning how to read, write, speak, and listen, and translated my first memoir within a novel when I was 16, which you can now find in your everyday old school bookstores. And in honor of my university self, I joined a community called UNSW Google Developer Student Club. So today I wanted to share my journey as a leader of this very, very new society on campus. And unlike perhaps a lot of other societies or even some companies, the birth of my title and my leadership story was quite unconventional, which is why I've decided to unravel that complexity and share it with you all. As some of you may or may not know, GDSC are student-run communities scattered across 1,900 colleges and universities around the globe. Each club works towards building a tech-focused community which aims to educate, involve, assist, or more importantly, bridge students closer to Google developers and the amazing technologies that are being built. Each community brings together minds that are creative and passionate about tech for conversation and experience. And so my story starts a little bit like this. So once upon a time, there was a UNSW and there was a GDSC. Two separate entities became one in 2021, with a society first set up base on campus. 2021 was quiet until the second half of last year, where a new team was ushered in and real growth started happening. As for myself, I joined this team 6 months in, during January of this year, as an event lead. If I were to describe myself when I first started out, I would say surprised, inexperienced, and lost. The amount of autonomy available was super frightening in that once you're unconditionally given so much of something, you don't know how to best use it. So in other words, having autonomy isn't always a luxury. Cut to the chase. After a few weeks into the new team, the leadership team collapsed. People left because there was an uncommunicated loss of passion, the emergence of greater priorities in life, and also what some people called just not vibing anymore. And so in the span of 3 days, the team went from 13 people to 3 people. How you could visualize that was like swiping the bottom Jenga out of the tower, or seeing a line of dominoes knock each other over in slow motion. As you can imagine, the loss of 10 people, including the presidency, meant a loss of expertise and order, a loss of team cohesion, and also an enormous slash at the society's longevity and community numbers. How was I feeling during those 72 hours? Pretty trashy. I was very disappointed, felt unlucky, helpless, and so on. After all, I did just set my foot through the door and had absolutely no idea what was going on. And so you may ask, as a confused individual, why save something that has almost collapsed? Why voluntarily jump inside a black hole? At some point in time, someone even asked, wouldn't it be irresponsible for you to take a society as a newcomer? You see, quitting is the easy part. It only takes a mere 3 seconds to say, I'm leaving, or like, GG, GDSC. But I wasn't expecting, nor did I join, to just echo the majority. I was here because I wanted to feed my hunger for experience, knowledge, as well as critical feedback. I wanted to see my ideas be reacted to and then refined over multiple trials. I wanted to offer useful things that would make the student community feel more confident, supported, and cared for. So I fought with the mentality that because I started investing in something that I cared about, I wouldn't stop until something was built and results were generated, which I think was what differentiated myself from others and disproved people's stereotypes towards newcomers. So after all that pep talk, I removed myself from the ruins of GDSC and positioned myself from afar. What did GDSC look like from a distance? What did GDSC look like from a student's point of view? From my observations, GDSC obviously lacked a sturdy internal architecture. And conversely, GDSC was an empire that didn't have a lot of windows. And what I mean by that is that people couldn't see inside and we could barely see outside. This was what introduced the issue of the absence of transparency, which hindered our ability to really establish that tight and genuine bond with our community and became some of the worst cracks in our construction. This was my mind repuzzling the entire society. I first had to think about how do I refurbish the foundation and how do I build cautiously above that? It forced me to think more critically, what are the consequences of my actions? What is the time cost of my action? And does this action really add value to the community, or is it too internally driven? By continuously asking the what if, I was starting to view things in 3D vision. And I think even beyond a society, with any approach that you have towards a problem you have at hand, it's always crucial to first stand afar, inspect where it broke, and consider the action and consequences at your proposed solutions. And ask yourself, are your solutions realistic? Are they feasible? And will it have a prolonged impact on the community? So, what did the journey look like for someone who started from square negative? This was my first test run. As previously mentioned, an observation I made was that GDSC lacked transparency, and in quotation marks, a bit of a businessy term, but customer intimacy. Following the high drop-off rate of our audience post-collapse, my first goal was to upsize our community. How did I do that? I decided to collaborate with existing communities and leverage that university space to share and fundamentally grow GDSC's network of people. So I reached out to the largest computer science and engineering society on campus with a 7,700 size audience and an alignment of superb events, and asked to band together at their weekly flagship social barbecues, which I knew had a strong turnout. When I tell people that I organized a barbecue to capture greater audiences, their first reaction is either to laugh or to get me to repeat myself. But what my friends don't know is that the barbecue produced results 80-20 style. What I mean by that is 80% of results came from 20% of the efforts, or in other words, low risk, high yield. We supported the event with our strength in event planning and brand reputation, and they supported with an audience and a large execution team. So the filling in of our strengths was what made the chemistry work. Also, being a social event, I was able to break the fourth wall and really get started on community transparency through conversation. Overall, this was a huge day with over 100 attendees swinging by and a 25% increase in our outreach account followers. Now, while they may have been a bit motivating in terms of working towards my goal of upsizing, having a broader audience would be meaningless if you had nothing to offer them. So my next move was retention. How do I shock the audience and get them to think, damn, I'm glad I clicked follow? In the backdrop of the barbecue, my team and I were boiling up a flagship industry event, which brought together great names in tech, including Google, Microsoft, Canva, Accenture, as well as Flutter. I made sure to position it soon after the barbecue to really grab hold of our new audience's attention, while they're still developing their views on the society and make a really good first impression. This strategy played out nicely, where our attendee numbers grew by almost 50% in the last 24 hours leading up to the event, with an expected audience of 130 people. The night featured a discussion among 3 amazing panelists, Gashan being one of them, followed by networking with representatives from nominated tech firms. It was filled with endless conversation over pizza and Messina and infectious smiles across everyone's faces, which really made me think to myself, well done for staying and for believing. This event was the main motivation booster. Our impressions of posts on LinkedIn almost doubled compared to the first industry event, despite all the internal shifting. And our feedback from attendees were consistently positive and brought a keen influx of potential new ideas. But something of equal importance was that we also became closer as an internal team, multi-purposely resolving the issue of culture as well. And this is us now. We've made another fresh start with our own modest and talented crew, which I can't wait to work with in the weeks to come. While this may only be a smidge of what UNSW GDSC is or will become, being someone who's laying the foundation for a society with such potential has been nothing but an eye-opener to life lessons around leadership, teamwork, people, and industry. And the final part of my story today will end with 3 short morals, one from each stage of my journey, that have left the deepest impact on me as an architect, a leader, and a 19-year-old who's still trying to figure things out. Lesson 1, collapse is an opportunity and a threat. The rest is your interpretation. It's an instinctual act to run away from life's problems. And intrinsically, people tend to first evaluate things through a negative lens. After first glance, there are people who don't stick around. And then there are others who continue to further dissect to see what's inside, I guess. This is not to say that you have to stick around for all eventualities. But I think the most important part is actually the second glance. It's always the second time where you notice more fine details. It's always the second time where you come up with a more holistic hypothesis or takes or opinions and make a fairer judgment. So I think it's always good to run the scenario you have at hand through patience, curiosity, and optimism the second time. Because some of the best opportunities are disguised in the most unconvincing and deformed ways. Lesson 2 is good team culture goes a long way. And part of achieving that is to not abuse the title that you have. I define culture as an intangible powerhouse of a team's ability to move forward together. It is the main source of motivation, collaboration, support, trust, and longevity. Part of the reason for the previous collapse was because there was an absence of culture. People were not engaged. There were micro groups forming inside the larger group, and there was just a huge distance between executive team and the pool of leads. And so instead of being socially and mentally oriented, our relationships were brute forced. Which leads me on to my next point, in that as a leader, you're responsible for not only leading the generation of the impact, but also being conscious that it's not a one person gets all the glory show. From uni to industry, I've noticed that there are so many instances where hierarchy instills fear and intimidation, and it creates a barrier between team player and leader. Which is why I've realized it's so important to be able to lower those walls and really become friends with those on your team. It also leads to a super generic phrase: leaders would be nothing without a team. That's why I'm super grateful for my co-leads who were always supportive and genuine with the actions along the way. And I really do believe that one of the silver linings to the cloud was that we became great friends along the way. The type where we were able to make intellectual and stupid remarks effortlessly. So my gratitude definitely goes out to them. My final lesson is you don't always have to be ready, but you should always be prepared. In my interpretation, readiness corresponds to understanding or knowing what to expect and equipping yourself accordingly, while the ability to be prepared is a higher level skill, suggesting that you trust yourself in having what it takes to find comfort amidst ambiguity. I think the most immediate example is me right now. Never in my entire university journey did I think that I'd be standing here as the co-lead of UNSW GDSC, sharing my leadership story. Never in my entire life did I think I had the guts to bite the bullet and keep it together. But here we are. Even outside GDSC, when someone asks me, "Are you ready for the exam?" Unless you've taken the exact same exam before and have been told that the second experience is exactly the same, the most you can do is equip yourself to the fullest and expect the ambiguity to hit you, which to me, that's called being prepared. Even though this is only one leadership position, being a part of UNSW GDSC has truly given me a lot. As a tech enthusiast, it has given me exposure to groundbreaking technologies and intelligent networks of people. As a creative mind, it has given me the opportunity to really craft event and marketing ideas and see that brainstorming come into fruition. And as a 19-year-old university student, it has been a testament to my leadership and personal growth, and has given me the opportunity to really give back to my educational community and become a positive influence on people who are just as passionate as me about the digital world. Thank you.
Any questions?
Hello. How can a non-student, like most of us here, contribute or, contribute? I don't know what the right word is, but give back to the society or something.
Yeah, so the great thing about GDSC is that what we're looking at is we're expanding to groups beyond the university community, which I'm guessing is what you're trying to say. So we are looking to expand to high school students, people who have graduated as well. So we're thinking of hosting a lot of technical and social events for you to really get involved with the Google community, whether that be, putting forward your expertise or listening to other people's expertise. Those are all some things that we are looking at creating in the very near future. So yes, you can expect to join real soon.
Hey, I'm Lorenzo. Yeah, for context, I was a UNSW student from 2019, 2021, so I graduated December 2021. Mm-hmm. The question is, why did you guys start in 2021 and not earlier? Because 2021, 2020, it was COVID, couldn't go to uni, couldn't go to events, but it was, if it was 2019, but yeah, those are jokes aside, were there any previous iterations of it starting earlier? What was the story of it starting in 2021 instead?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, well, I don't know too much about why the heck they started in 2021. They could have done that much earlier, but I knew that the name was established in 2021, but there was actually no work being done in 2021. It was really the second half of 2022, so last year. That's when events started being hosted. I know that there also is an application like whole system. So maybe that might have been like a demotivator for people. People just wanted to establish a club. Because as you know, UNSW, if you just want to establish a club, you sort of rock up to ARC and you're like, hey, here's my idea, here's how I think it'll play out. But because it was a whole like official process, I think that might have been a barrier to entry, if you will. Yeah.
So like a lot of administrative stuff with ARC, which is the main barrier.
Yes, and I guess people weren't that big on GDSC because I know that you said they probably started earlier. I'm not sure. Yeah, so I think a lot of things, people's mind just switched on in 2021. I'm pretty sure UTS also started in 2021. So I think it's like 2021 was just a big year. Yeah,
I see.
Sorry.
Hello. Thanks for the great talk. Just one question: how do I become a GDSC lead? Or like how do I come into the organizing committee of GDSC? What's the process?
Yeah, so we recently just opened applications for lead recruitment, and there's like 3 different portfolios: so events, tech, and marketing. And as the name suggests, they cater to different parts of the society. So as long as you're interested in being a part of like the organizing community, you just need to sign up, put through an application. There's a small interview process, but it's super casual. It's just a conversation. And that's how you really segue into becoming a part of the organizing team. Pardon? No, you don't. But I feel like nobody really pays, like people who have graduated, they don't really, I guess, what's the word? It's like, they don't really look on university social media, but I think that's also an area of improvement. We could tap into greater, I guess, more accessible places like websites. That's like a very general space. So yeah, thank you for that suggestion.
Hey, I was going to ask, what's your vision for the club, like next 5 years?
Yeah, okay, so I probably won't be here for like the next 5 years. But I can say that my vision and goals for this year, which is when I will be here, is in terms of the internal team, I'm trying to work on culture. Because as I said before, culture really fosters longevity. And I want this club to remain active and grow even better into the future. So I'm trying to foster good culture internally. In terms of externally, I want to make it a really diverse group. As I said, I want to tap into places like high schools, places like post-uni as well, to really get that name out there and also provide like a lot of good technical and social expertise to all kinds of audiences. So I think, tapping into different age groups as well, that's how you also drive greater brand awareness for GDSC.
Sorry, more of a comment than a suggestion. Like having led communities and being part of it, I think the thing that you just said, that you're going to be here for, I don't know, that like this year, next year, or the next 2 years. The issue with communities is succession planning, like who's going to come after you, or what team is going to take over when this team kind of passes out or like graduates. I think that's another important area to focus so that the club goes longer.
Yeah, for sure, definitely.
Thanks for the talk as well. I was just curious, it's more a personal question, since you have changed your vision multiple times, how did it change now? You said like you don't know where, or probably not here in the next 5 years. So what would you say, how you think of your career or next steps now after having realized that you change it quite often as well?
Yeah, I think actually replaying the different stages of my life, another purpose in that was to actually show the maturity of how I'm thinking. So first was like, yeah, I want to be a pianist and I want to live inside the opera house. That's like a very, very, very naive sort of, I guess, way of thinking. But to answer your question as to I'm just gonna clarify your question, but like, was the question, where do I see myself moving forward? Is that what you were asking?
Basically, and whether you actually still think about it in a similar way as you did in the past.
Yeah, okay, so I would say I'm pretty stable in my thinking right now, which is that I do want to go into tech. In terms of what role, preferably something to do, well, right now, I'm interested in like product strategy and tech, so taking on a bit of a commercial role, but I know for sure that I want to be in tech. In terms of, you know, my previous thinking, as I said, they've all just become getaways. So places I can sort of tap into when I'm struggling or I need to like put my mind on something else. So I've translated those into hobbies, but I do have a main focus, which is tech right now.
Thanks.
Thanks, Claire. I was wondering how you went about like recruitment after like, so you team of 3 and now I think there were like 7 or 8 of you up there. How did you go? What did you look for in those new people?
Yeah, so I think for me personally, obviously you need to be driven, but what I think really made me say yes to candidates is they really doubled down on something that they were really passionate about. And I think having that nicheness in your head or having that dedication to something that you really care about, that's really what made me go like, oh, damn, like this person is committed. And I'm sure that, you know, since they're expressing interest in the club, they would apply that same mindset. And I think if everyone is dedicated, obviously the society does, you know, power forward. So, yeah.